Today is the last day of the Inter-Africa Trade Fair in Algiers, Algeria. Fascinating country with a long history and a rich culture as well. So effectively, Algeria is the largest country in Africa by size, and it is the 10th largest country by size in the world. But 80% of the country is just a desert. So people live in 20% of the country, which is along the Mediterranean mostly. So all their cities are along the Mediterranean, and only a few are sort of like going towards the desert itself. And it is such a rich culture, mostly emanating from its own history. So different civilizations have left a little mark on Algeria. So they've had the Berbers as a civilization that's been here. They've had the Phoenicians. They've had the Romans. They've had the Arabs. They've had the Ottomans, and of course the French being the last colonial masters of this country. So each one has left some kind of a mark. So you will find that, okay, so most parts of this country, or a number of parts of this country, they use the Berbers calendar, for example. And of course, naturally, it's an Arab country, that's they speak Arabic, and that's the influence of the Arabs. And then they have a coffee culture, which is very Turkish in terms of the type of coffee that they drink, the way it should be prepared. They have this Turkish style preparation of coffee, which again is the influence of the Ottoman Empire. And then in terms of how they consume coffee, in the town, for example, the whole pavement, terrace style sitting throughout the day, that is the French influence. So they've got such a strong coffee culture. The nature of the inquiries that we're getting here on the stand, on the Changamiri stand, is that they will come and they will try and taste. We take them back, around the back, they taste and they say, it's nice, the coffee is nice, but it's not strong, it doesn't have a kick.
It's not strong.
So, yeah, but they like their coffee. And actually, a little bit of trivia, the concept of the iced coffee actually started here in Algeria. So they have what they call Mazagran. So Mazagran is a place, some point where it was a base, it was a military base in the 19th century during some wars that they would have been fighting at that point. And that's where this cold coffee was first consumed by the military guys. But that place is actually the one that is called Mazagran. So that has become the name of the cold coffee that is drank in this place. And like I said, they do drink coffee multiple times through the day. And other fascinating things, or not fascinating, other interesting trivia facts about Algeria, they have some of the best dates in the world. So I'm planning to be carrying back a few myself to take back to the United Kingdom. And as far as food is concerned, couscous is their national dish, sort of like equivalent to sadza in Zimbabwe. And so you get fish, a lot of fish as well, being served. But their food is very fresh. That's one of the things, I guess, Mediterranean region is going to be like that. But yeah, they like their food culture, their coffee culture. And coffee is actually seen as a sign of hospitality, together with mint tea. They will serve you mint tea. You go to a restaurant, the last thing you get before you go out is that you are given a cup of mint tea just as you're sitting after having your meal. So that is a sign of hospitality. But coffee and mint tea, when you're being given that, your host is trying to suggest that you are welcome into my house and you can be comfortable in my house. Here with Changamiri Coffee Company, the one thing that is very evident, the one thing that we have come to understand about Algeria is that they drink a lot of coffee because of perhaps where they are economically and otherwise. They don't get the best quality coffee. So they have the Robusta variety. That's the coffee that they import to consume. But even with that Robusta, they get the poorer grades. What the government has done, coffee is a highly regulated commodity in Algeria. There are not businesses that are operating in the coffee sector cannot charge above a certain amount for the coffee. So the price of coffee is controlled, which makes it very difficult to think about doing business with them, because the business has to think about how much they're going to sell it. But I mean, there is a caveat in what I'm saying, because what the government has done is said you cannot charge your customers more than a certain amount for the coffee that you're selling them. However, if you sell at that low price, even if at a loss, you can then go to the government and apply to the government so that the government can reimburse you so that you become profitable, or you can then carry on trading in coffee. So it's a weird arrangement. Of course, because people here drink a lot of coffee, the reasoning, the thinking behind the government's price control is that they don't want anyone to be priced out of coffee, which is quite an interesting way of looking at things at the market, because you would think that the laws of supply and demand would simply mean that if prices go up, there will be less people to consume, and eventually the price will have to come down so that people can afford, more people can afford it. But that is a system that is here that makes it very difficult to talk long-term business with the people here. And also, it was interesting that the inquiries that we're receiving, most of the inquiries that we're receiving, had to do with people wanting to know sort of like the price. What is the price of coffee? How much do you sell your coffee at? And also, what is the cost of you landing it here? Well, naturally, we don't know what the trade routes are like to come to ship anything from Zimbabwe to here, but I could possibly just give the price of the coffee. But what I then discovered after getting a lot of inquiries, people wanting Zimbabwean coffee, I discovered that the Algerian government has a scheme where they are incentivizing entrepreneurship. So if you go to the government with a business plan, especially if you're young, the government will give you money. So the inquiries that we're getting were people that were then hoping to get into getting information that they get into the coffee industry by way of knowing all the information that is necessary, which they can then put into their business plan or proposal to take to the government for funding. It has been an absolute honor. It's been a pleasure being a part of the Zimbabwean delegation. And I want to say that Zimbabwe did not come to play. I've walked around. Zimbabwe has about the best stand on shore. And so they really put some work in this. They really put some work. You know, if you look at the way they've done the stalls, the design, the boardroom, yeah, it's a fantastic station, and it is. If you walk around, you can clearly see that Zimbabwe had, significantly higher interest than other sub-Saharan African countries. I mean, next to us is Zambia. I mean, you just watch from here that barely anybody is going through. It's just, but Zimbabwe, it was so busy. People are so interested in Zimbabwe. And one of the things, obviously, when I do the coffee, the station will be clear, but the moment you just take out to say you're preparing, they just gather. It's like whether they just smell it from wherever, and they come. And the moment they realize that it was for free as well, that made things even worse for us, because everybody wants coffee. Everybody drinks coffee in this country, like serious amounts of coffee. The whole day, they spend the whole day drinking coffee. And they brew it in Turkish style, which involves having it finely ground and then put in water and then boiled over. And then you have it like it forms into this like paste. So it tastes very strong. And if you do it with a dark roasted Robusta, it makes it even, bitter and Robusta has got high caffeine. And that's the coffee that they like. One guy came to me and he says, listen, Arabica is for women here, and Robusta is for men. But what they have though is there's a higher end. They call them salons that also do tea, and that's where women go, and that's where you would find better, sort of like finer coffee being served. But there are coffee shops we'll have men who will be, so a lot of coffee and a lot of smoking. They smoke and they have coffee. Spend the whole day doing that. One guy was saying his father, this young man who came, says his father drinks coffee from the time he wakes up consistently all the way until he goes to bed. And if he wakes up at midnight, he can just go and make himself a cup of coffee. So from the Zimbabwe stand point of view, it's been a marvelous opportunity to be a part of something so great, for a change. Zimbabwe does get a bad rap very often, and in cases justifiably so. It's come a long way. Things are improving, and even I think that the day before yesterday there was a Zimbabwe Algeria dialogue session, very well attended, and meaningful conversations were had there, and I had my own contribution, of course, around coffee. But it was such an interesting space, and some serious business was being discussed. Right. But in overall, as a trade fair, an African trade fair, things are happening in Africa. This event is phenomenal. It's absolutely phenomenal. You go to the Tunisian stand is insane. The Algerians, they've got different spots. It's also big. I went to the Kenya stand. Again with their coffee. Coffee is leading there as their main thing. They are pushing to the front, sort of like to draw people in. And some countries have just done bits and not much. I mean, Mozambique is next to Zimbabwe here. They've just got a booth which is maybe about 3-4 meters, and Namibia is also there, and Malawi is around the back with Gabon and other countries. But it's a fantastic place to be for business, and I think it's a signal that Africa is really wanting to do something as a continent. The conversations that are being had here are quite interesting if you go to the sessions, the different sessions that have been taking place here. But the winner, the most serious, Dangote, that organization, wow, they are phenomenal. They are phenomenal. I mean, their presence, they were sort of like one of the main sponsors of this event, but they are serious. Dangote is serious. I mean, their operations, they're everywhere. So, so it's been a wonderful 7 days here in Algeria. And I look forward. I understand next year is going to be in Nigeria, and hopefully I'll have the privilege of being invited again to join the Zimbabwe delegation to Nigeria, and we'll also be better prepared. We brought in coffee, but not enough. All sold out, and people begging to buy. Even when we're saying, no, we need this to display, people are begging. There's a guy who came on day 2 or 3. He came today on the last day, and he said, I came last time and you said maybe on the last day there will be some coffee for me because we are no longer selling. Fortunately, we had 3 bags left. So I ended up having to sell him one of the bags. But it's been an interesting, I keep repeating that, it's been an interesting and an eye-opener, to use a cliche, an eye-opener indeed. So I'm really looking forward to what comes out of it, and to see if anything can really happen between Zimbabwe and Algeria as far as coffee is concerned, with Changamire coffee in the center of it all. But yeah, what an event, what a society, what a community. And the other thing, I went to Rwanda and I talked about security in Rwanda, and I thought they don't mess around with security in Rwanda. Here in Algeria, there is police everywhere. There is police everywhere. And one of the, the wonderful things that I got to experience was being in a hotel that is guarded by the police on the door, on account of you being in that particular hotel. And in the morning when you're being picked up to go to the venue, to the trade fair venue, there is a police escort that takes you there. And in the evening, they bring you back. So it was quite an interesting thing to experience what it feels like to not be held up in traffic. Um, but while you're driving, you get the sense that people are not necessarily scared of the police as much as, say in Zimbabwe, when you hear a siren on a motorbike coming through, VIP coming, I mean, cars would, here one time, I think I recorded it, a moment where, I'll superimpose it on this, a moment where the bike that was escorting us was asking the guy to move out. And this guy was also pulling signs at the police officer to say, hey, like, get away, what are you talking about? So which is quite interesting. You'd think that these countries are quite police states. I mean, it's police state in the sense that there's a lot of police. There are lots of police everywhere, everywhere indeed. Yeah, but so anyway, thank you very much for tuning in. This is the Diary of the Coffee Hunter. Don't forget to subscribe, like the content that we have here, even the controversial one. I read through all the comments and I read through them with fascination, particularly the ones to do with the Zimbabwe, the relocation stuff. Yeah, that really exercised people and that really got people all worked up. But yeah, I take in all the comments, all the feedback, and really understand people have got different perspectives, and I never take anything personal. But thank you very much for watching. Subscribe once again, and see you again soon.